Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Y-Wave P20 Pro and MTN.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
It is one thing that's guaranteed to happen to every single one of us, yet surprisingly, it catches a lot of us off guard, often throwing us into a world of debt. The cost of funerals is what we're focusing on tonight. So why do we spend so much on them? Why aren't most of us better prepared financially for the inevitable? And do you know enough about the business of funerals and how they operate? Well, stick around for some mind-blowing figures a little bit later. But to start us off in this conversation, we're taking a look at different cultural groups and how they address this aspect of our lives. First, we welcome Saeed Rezai, Imam for the Islamic Center for Africa, as well as Rabbi Jonathan Fox, the group rabbi of the Johannesburg Jewish Helping Hand. Good evening, both of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Azania.
And I'm glad that we could start by exploring different cultures, exploring how different practices are observed. So please start off by explaining to us how soon the deceased is buried in your cultures. Rabbi?
According to the Jewish culture, we try to bury the deceased as soon as possible after the departure of the deceased, preferably on the same day. If there's a pressing need to delay the funeral slightly, then we do up to maybe 2 days, but as soon as possible out of respect for the deceased.
Oh, so it's out of respect. Is
Yes.
that the only motivating reason?
Well, there are really two reasons. To leave the corpse unattended is disrespectful towards the deceased. And secondly, on a more mystical level, we believe that the soul only finds true comfort once the body is buried. So we try to do that as soon as possible in order to allow the soul to move on to the next world.
Right. And Imam, what are the practices in Islam as far as time is concerned?
Thanks for your invitation. Assalamu alaikum.
Islam.
Peace be upon you. According to Islam, when a person dies, as soon as possible, his body should be buried.
Mm-hmm.
There is no any reason for delay. If really there is reasonable reason, valuable reason to delay, for example, his family are not in the city, then they should wait. Otherwise, as soon as possible, they should bury his body.
Right. And when it comes to burial or cremation, what is the preference? What are some of the beliefs there?
So from our point of view, from a Jewish point of view, is that we believe that the body was created by the Maker,
Yeah.
and therefore should be treated with the utmost respect, and we don't have the permission to destroy the body, and therefore we give it back to the ground from which it came.
So no cremation
No
is allowed?
cremation according to Judaism.
Yes. And according to Islam?
According to Islam, you know, we should understand the issue of death. You know, according to our holy book, death is not the end. Death actually, it's the start of a new life. A new life that really we don't have a lot of information about it.
Yes.
So after a person dies, there are some process we should follow. The first process is to wash the body. We wash 3 times. Of course, there is some differences among different school of thought of Islam. And then we make the body coffin with 3 pieces of cloth.
Yes.
And then we process the burial ceremony. We take the body to graveyard, and just we finish the job.
Yes. Is there a particular reason for the washing of the body?
Look, because we believe there is another life beyond this life, so we want that body to be clean. You know, to be clean, always be good. So it's the only reason, to be hygienic, to be clean.
To enter into the next life. And no coffins whatsoever, just the wrapping with the cloth.
Yeah, there are 3 pieces of cloths in white, and then we wrap it and then we put inside the grave.
Yes, so these are all very sacred rituals as part of this transition. But what about the actual gathering, those that get to come and bid their final farewells? How is it observed in the Jewish faith? Are all invited?
Absolutely, all are invited, and it's considered a very great, we call it a mitzvah, which means a good deed, to be at a funeral, to show compassion to both the mourners
Yes.
and to provide comfort to the departed. The more people that attend, the greater honor it is for the deceased. And the people who attend the funeral walk along with the coffin towards the gravesite, and that's all gives honor to the deceased and provides great respect towards him and towards the family.
Right, and in some cultures you find that, you know, there would be a brewing of, say, traditional beer, the slaughtering of a cow or a sheep and so on, depending on the belief or the group itself. So what are some of the things that are done within the Jewish faith?
In the Jewish faith, we don't have a celebration, so to speak. Everything is kept very simple and dignified. The only meal that is provided is a meal by the relatives of the mourners towards the mourners when they return home from the burial. And that's a very simple meal of eggs, boiled eggs, and bagels. You know, bagels, the round bread.
Any significance to that?
Yes, that symbolizes the cycle of life, because at the moment, at the passing of a relative, the mourners feel that they are on the bottom of the cycle of life. And we try to give them the message with the bagels and the eggs that life is a cycle, and please God, in a short amount of time, they will be back onto the top of that cycle of life.
Oh, wow. And Imam, take me through how these aspects are observed within Islam, especially in terms of how people observe that moment, considering how quickly it has to happen.
Look, when a person dies, it's recommended to invite all the families, all the relatives, all those people that the family know them. And for three reasons. The first reason, they should be there to show their empathy to the family of that person. The second reason is to make supplication. And the third reason, to have a warm funeral, and there is a special prayer that if the number of people are more, then God gives more rewards. And then in terms of cooking food, for 3 days it's recommended for the others to cook for the family that they lost their beloved.
That's very thoughtful. It's very thoughtful, because at a time of grieving, at a time of mourning, that's what you're meant to strictly focus on, and not necessarily all the other logistics around welcoming people who are there to see off the deceased. Very thoughtful. So community-centric from the sounds of things.
Yes, indeed.
You're both nodding away, because so clearly these are very important aspects.
You know,
absolutely. According to both our religions, I think, is that compassion is such a central part of our religion, and especially at a time of such grief and such loss, we have to, the people who attend have to show incredible compassion towards the mourners.
You know, nowadays when family lose his beloved, they start to think where they should get money to spend for funeral, to cook for people. But according to pure religion, it should not be like that. There should not be any other worries. So the other people should come forward and help. And exactly Islam says the same.
The same. On average, like if we could talk figures, because we know that in this country, funerals can go into the hundreds of thousands for some. What are the figures that you normally encounter? The cost
just
to families.
To preempt that the rabbis about 2,000 years ago realized that there could be a great expense in a funeral, and they made a decree that every funeral should be standardized, simple, and dignified. And therefore, every single Jewish funeral is identical from a cost point of view, and in terms of the coffin and the shrouds and the washing. Everything is very much standardized, simple and dignified.
So whatever the station the person occupied in life, no matter the wealth, economically, wherever they're positioned, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely, and the main reason for that was not to embarrass the poor, so that everybody would have a standard funeral, and the poor would be able to afford the same type of funeral as the wealthy.
Yes. So we're talking in the low 2000s, low thousands.
So in the Jewish community, we have a society. It's called the Chevra Kadisha, which is the Holy Society. They take care of the entire funeral from the time of passing until the time of burial. So they collect the body, they wash the body, they guard the body, and ensure that the burial takes place. And the entire cost is approximately 18,000 rand.
I see.
Yes,
And-
but that, as I say, that is standardized. It's never more, and it's usually never less.
And in Islam?
You know, one of the most important action in this process is to wash the body. And Islam says you cannot, you should not ask money. It should be free. And then the other thing is coffin. It's very cheap. So I cannot give you a figure, but the cost is very, very,
Very
low.
minimal, yeah. So to ensure that as the family moves on, they're not burdened by the cost of burying their loved one. Thank you so much. Thank you to both of you for shedding some light
Thank you,
on how your
Azania.
respective
Thanks,
cultures.
Leslie.
And I think our cultures are quite
Very
similar.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Well, we say goodbye to Rabbi Jonathan Fox and Saeed Razai, but coming up next, we're joined by author Joshua Maponga to talk African custom and tradition in the event of a funeral. From the slaughtering of cows and sheep to brewing traditional beer, as well as bringing the deceased to spend one last night in the family home prior to being buried, there are a lot of customs and rituals that get observed by all tribal groups. Here to provide some context on what some of these practices symbolize is author and cultural expert Joshua Maponga. Thank you so much, Baba. Sawubona.
Sawubona, kunjani sibhe?
I know ngiyaphila, Baba.
Thokoza.
It's lovely to be here.
Pleasure.
So we were exploring the Islamic and Jewish faiths a little bit earlier on. So now we're exploring various African beliefs. And first off, let's look at the kind of things we observe, the waiting period before we bury. Sometimes it can go as long as a week. Why is that so?
Maybe the first insertion of it will be a conundrum to consider Jewish and Islamic faith as not being African. They're actually African because the Platonic stone of Africa includes Palestine and east of Africa. So it's only the Suez Canal, which is hardly a few meters wide,
Yes.
which was dug as early as the 1950s, which separates what now we call Middle East. But initially, what you call Middle East is actually North Africa. So maybe let's just say the big faiths of the world are all African. Maybe I'll be comfortable to start there.
All right.
But the waiting period, yes, it's important, depending on the social status. You're looking at Africa right now with 52 countries. And
54.
54, with them, they're being born every day. And inside these 54 countries, South Africa could be hosting 12, 13 tribes. Zambia, 76 or something languages. Zimbabwe, another 15, 16. So you're looking at a plethora of various ethnic groups which have split. And each one of them, culture is dynamic.
Yes.
Every generation seems to be improving and changing and etc. But initially, depending on the social status, then the waiting period will determine. Like in Ghana, in Nigeria, in some places, it's a month plus where people are waiting.
Yes.
Lower south, it can take a week. In Zimbabwe, for example, in Botswana, during the high peak times of AIDS, even 1 day or 2 days, and economic issues are always having an impact. But depending on royal and social status, then the waiting period can be extended or it can be shortened.
And what informs this waiting period? Because for some people believe that it's to give others an opportunity to make their way to where the funeral will be taking place and to pay their last respects.
The economic and the politics of Africa has affected some of these things.
Okay.
Because people have migrated into towns, migrated into the greater global village. So the passing away of a loved one cannot just be assumed that we're in the village within the next 2 days. everyone who is within
Yes.
the sound of a horn can hear the cry.
The
that someone is
announcement.
please,
Yeah.
we just whether we are brewing our beer or someone has died, we send someone to the side of a mountain, pick up a kudu horn, and make that sound, and we all know something has happened. But now you
Yes.
can no longer blow the kudu horn. You need WhatsApp, you need Facebook, you need phone calls.
Catch a
you
flight,
know,
a drive, you need to ask for
everyone
leave.
must fly here.
Yes.
So it takes time. So maybe for initially it could just be an economic and geographical issues that are in consideration. But
Yes.
above that also, parting with a loved one is not supposed to be a transactional ice cream paper. I've eaten my ice cream, what do I do with a piece of paper? You just take it and dump it away. You know, we loved them, they gave birth to us. We want to hang around with them as much as possible. Grieving starts right there.
Right. So let's look at the fact that in some nations, some families believe that the deceased must spend that last night before the burial in the home. What's the significance of that?
It's a connection. Basically, you left here, and before we left here, we did some rituals to send you away. And wherever you die, where you die, then we pick up a bush or a shrub.
Yes, to
we
bring
say
you
now,
also.
finally, you know, we are now going to take you home. We speak to the bush because we believe your soul will be sitting here. We come to the place where you have died, or there's an accident, or it's a hospital. We whisper some words, and then we drag that thing with us. Watch this. We drag that thing with us every time we're crossing a river. Mysteriously
tell.
so.
Yes.
Because we believe water and soil and air make the human body. So we begin to transport you backwards. The mystery is that small little bush, when you finally get home and the body is with you, we put it next to the box. We keep on talking. By the time we go to the graveyard, there's a big dish of water that is put at the gate. We take that bush and we put it into the water. Everyone goes and buries. When you come back, may you please go via the house and wash your hands.
Yes.
Many people make a mistake. They think that it is wash their hands to clean their hands. No, we wash in the same dirt. We wash in the same clumsy water. As it were, all the spirits and the souls and the lives of the people who are involved with me are here.
Yes.
And the bush is also inside there. And if any one of us was involved in the demise of this person, then people work on that water. And the insults and the curses of the entire community will follow the person whose hands were also found in here. So it's a way of balancing the whole community and said, let's not make sure our hands are
Yes.
contaminated with other people's blood.
No, and I'm glad you touched on that because lots of people do.
They want to wash on the
observe.
side. They want
Yes,
to wash
or
on
they
the
say,
side.
oh, this water is dirty.
No, no,
Why are we
no.
all
You must
washing in
actually
this
put
water?
your hands in the dirty water. That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
We are in this pain together.
Together.
So we muddle together.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the offering that is made in the form of slaughtering, even in the brewing of the traditional beer. Why are these offerings important?
That's another
What do
reason
they
why we must wait
symbolize?
again. That's why another must wait. Because you cannot brew beer today.
No, you can't
And
overnight.
it's good
It's
by
not
tonight.
instant.
You need some 7 days to make sure this concoction has an impetus, appetizing and intoxicating effect. But yes, we wait. We wait at this person. We brew these substances. We're supposed to connect with each other. It's a time of interaction, socializing one with another. It's a time to sit around and
To
reminisce. And usually people who cry too much on funerals did not come early to vent out their problems, to vent out their sorrows. So we take time to appreciate the person
Yes.
all week. And it's unfortunate that our cities have stolen from us that essence of community. Where now we walk in there with our cell phones, we just sit around. We don't even bring cakes or cabbages or vegetables or a pocket of lettuce, for crying out loud.
Does that mean you lament the commercialization and just the sheer cost?
The whole beast, if I can move to the beast part, it's supposed not just be slaughtered. It's the skin. I know the Muslims and the Jews will be talking about cloths and etc. In an African context, no. The very beast that we are slaughtering today, we will take that skin. That becomes the coffin itself. So this whole commercializing of people buying caskets and whatnot, it's foreign to us. Initially, you kill the cow, then you wrap the person inside that blanket, inside that skin. In some cases, then you put a reeds around it. In the northern Congos and other places, then you can push the body into the waters. In some other cultures, then you can bury the thing. In some more royal places, then you can find caves, and we store these bodies right there.
Yes.
Where other rituals of setting up kings and etc. will be happening in such caves, yeah.
What is the significance in some nations where the hair is cut, either completely shaven or a patch of it cut off?
If right now a ghost would appear here, your hair would stand on its ends. So it is your signal. It is your connecting. it is your connecting cables to the world of the supernatural. So actually the shaving of that allows the person to transit into a new space where they can develop new sensitivities around their own lives. So the removing of the hair, it symbolizes the parting away of the old senses. It's changing signals, basically, from Vodacom to MTN. You know,
And I think for anyone that wants to know more, they can check out your book.
Facebook, Twitter, book, you'll find me. If you look for me with all your heart, you'll
We'll
find me.
find you. We will find you. Well, it's definitely hard to imagine that people would ever think to capitalize on other people's grief. But when there's a lot of money to be made, you'd be surprised to find out just how quickly a person abandons their moral compass for money. Well, after the break, we're getting into the dark side of the funeral business. According to the National Funeral Directors Association of South Africa, some South Africans are dropping between 100,000 and 200,000 rand to lay their loved ones to rest. This is despite the fact that funerals can be done for as little as 9,000 rand. As if those numbers aren't shocking enough, the biggest gainers from the funeral industry are flower arrangement services, the caterers, funeral homes, and insurance policies. How's that for a sobering thought? Well, right now, we welcome to Real Talk the president of the National Funeral Directors Association of South Africa, and that is Lawrence Konyana, to talk us more through the industry. Good evening. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So let's look at the numbers. I just shared a few of them about how much people are willing to spend. How big is the funeral industry in this country?
Well, to be honest with you, if I had to give you the numbers, I'll be thumb-sucking.
Oh, really?
Some estimated to be worth 10 billion. But those who are still in the industry will still say that's not the correct figure.
Do you think it's more?
It could be more or it could be less. But, you know, the current structure doesn't allow for us to give those kind of figures because we don't really know how big is the industry in South Africa.
So the responsibility of funeral parlors and the role that you play in ensuring that they exercise the highest ethical standards when dealing with families. Take us through some of those.
Well, for us as an FDA, we want to make sure that the funeral industry is professional. They treat our clients with profession, and they do all the necessary things that they need to do to take care of the body. But unfortunately, you know, now and then you will get some people who won't toe the line or who will want to do their own thing, which is the biggest problem because regulation in this industry is still the biggest problem. Although there are regulations, but there is lack of regulation. You know, in most cases, I'm always tempted to say we need regulation to regulate because the regulations are there, but enforcement thereof, it's almost nil.
So is it safe to say that families should ask to see whether these funeral parlors are certified?
Yes, it's always advisable that the families should find out if the funeral parlor that they're using is compliant. And if you are staying within that community, you can ask friends and families who's the reliable, dependable funeral parlor in that area.
Let's look at some of the things that are going on. There often reports sometimes of falsified death certificates. Are you aware of this as one problem area?
Look, yes, through the insurance companies, we have been aware of such incidents. There are some funeral parlors who have been implicated in such. Unfortunately, I myself have never really encountered that sort of thing, but we are aware of reports that are going around that there are certain funeral parlors who are involved in scams like that.
Yes, but there's also other crookery, other types of behavior that's going on. What has been brought to your attention?
Well, people being charged too much for certain products, or you know, the funeral parlor not being fair with his prices. That's one of the things that comes up.
What constitutes fair, though?
Well, you know, funerals are a bit like weddings. You choose whether you're going to have a lavish wedding or you choose whether you're going to have a small wedding with 10 people and just pop and meet. Or you choose whether you're going to have a big funeral with the imported caskets and a lovely tombstone. So it's basically a question of choice.
On the consumer side?
Yes.
So do you then deem these to be fair practices?
Well, it's sometimes difficult to say what's fair practices. If I had to make an example, if you want to drive a Golf and a Mercedes-Benz, it's a personal choice.
Yes, but the dealer must still be responsible.
Yes, definitely. Definitely they must be responsible. And that's why we always advise our members that they must be transparent on their charges and explain to the family that these charges are itemized, basically, to say, this is how much the casket will cost you, this is the service, this is the kind of service that we're going to give you. And we always encourage our customers to ask questions and to find out, for this much that I'm paying, what is it that I'm getting? What is it that's going to happen? Unfortunately, you get dodgy dealers who will promise the family heaven on earth and never
Not
really
deliver.
deliver on the service.
And what recourse is there in the event that there has been this kind of dodgy dealing? Can your organization or your association intervene?
Well, our association, if it's our members, we do intervene. And even if they are not our members, we do try to intervene. But because, you know, we're not the legal authority, we are limited in terms of how much we can do for the families.
Right.
But definitely, if it's one of our members, we are able to deal with that member.
So the fraud that we spoke of earlier, is there a cause of concern? Is it escalating? Are we seeing an increase in it? Because there's money involved.
Well, according to the insurance companies, it is definitely escalating. And I think it affects us as well in terms of the service providers. Even the insurances themselves are probably the ones that are hardest hit because they have to pay out on fraudulent claims.
How lucrative is this sector, or is this as a business?
Well, not as people would like to think it is. People always look at it and say, there's a lot of people dying. And thanks to ARVs, maybe, people are not dying that much. And it's not as lucrative as it's seen. You might see, you know, funeral parlors driving or doing funerals with expensive vehicles and stuff, but it's because it's what the consumer,
more and more lavish.
but it's what the consumer demands. If you don't have those kind of cars, then you don't get customers.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's unfair to blame funeral parlors because it's actually what the consumer wants, and we just adhering to those demands.
I find that it's almost as if then there'll never come a point where these come to an end, where the abuse or the unfair practices come to an end because it's perceived that this is what the consumer wants. So we'll give them what they want, regardless of some of the other consequences that come to play.
No, I think it will come to an end. Look, as an NFDA and other partners and other associations, we're working towards a professional body. Basically, we want to professionalize and have, you know, sort of peer regulations so that we know people are treated fairly. And it's just that on the government side, it's a bit lacking. We're not getting much support from that side. If we could get support from that side, you know, definitely crookery and fraudulent claims will definitely come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I want to thank you for being here, because so many people do feel that at that time they're very vulnerable. So we do need the service provider or associations such as those to provide these safeguards wherever necessary.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Lawrence Konyana, the president of the NFDA. But coming up, are you financially prepared to fork out thousands of rands for an unexpected funeral? If not, be sure to come back to find out which options are available to you. Well, grim as it may be to think about this, the question needs to be asked. If tomorrow came and you were no longer here to see it, what kind of financial state would you leave your loved ones in seeing to your funeral? Have you made the kind of necessary planning to ensure all the expenses are met? Or would your family spiral into massive debt trying to bury you? There's no better person to ask than the woman who describes herself as South Africa's most trusted money lady. She counsels a lot of people on saving, investing, and managing their debt. It's the financial coach, the one and only Winnie Kunene. Thank you so much for being here. I love your writing. I love the advice that you dispense. So you are the go-to person for this.
Thank you.
So let's look at the pressure that a lot of families come under.
Yes.
When it comes to this moment, this tragic moment when they have to say goodbye to their loved ones. What kind of pressures do people experience?
You know, people get overwhelmed, obviously, because no one gets ready for death. You know, tomorrow, my tomorrow is never confirmed. I may be here today, tomorrow I may be gone. So it is very overwhelming. It is highly stressful. And a lot of people and families no one ever knows how to handle death. And so in that state of confusion, people are then forced to think about money, because obviously, is the money, is the insurance, how are we going to bury this person? Again, as Mr. Maponga has already said, it is an overwhelming experience, and our traditions are beautiful. And I think I don't know whether some faith has actually bastardized and demonized our culture and the way we grieve for our loved ones. We've made it so demonic that we needed to monetize everything.
And let's now look at the money and how we can potentially prepare. There's funeral cover, right? And there's also life cover.
Yes.
So which of these two should we be looking at as a means of providing for our funerals?
Okay, two things. I must declare that I am not a financial advisor. I will simply just tell people about the difference between the two. And the funeral policy is something that takes care of the funeral, and that is it. Your hearse, the whole activity, the whole fashion show is taken care by the funeral policy. Because that's the new age thing now. Funerals are a fashion show. Okay, it's a place to show off and show, you know, how successful you are and how much you respect your loved ones, even though you treated them like crap while they are still alive. You just have to make sure that the world knows
when the
how
show day
well
comes.
you do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, the life insurance helps you to take care of your family even after your death.
Yes.
How much, who do you owe? Even if it's your neighbor will have an opportunity to be paid back their money while you are sleeping peacefully in your grave. It will also take care of your child's school fees. It will do quite a lot of things.
All of that to ensure that the family
Those
doesn't go without. Yes. And then there's this thing called funeral insurance.
Funeral insurance.
Is it the same as funeral policy?
It is a policy. It's the funeral insurance.
Right.
Yes. It just in the case, in the event you die, you will go in style. And I think it is as a result of responding to the demand of where people want celebrity funerals. So
you're making me laugh because of the way in which you are painting this entire affair.
But isn't it though?
And we also hear people going into debt.
Yes.
Going into debt to be able to bury their loved ones.
Exactly.
Surely that's not advisable.
And that's the sad part of it, in a sense that even though they have the life insurance, you know, if I come to your funeral, so suddenly I want to be like you, remember? Or other family members, maybe if I have sisters and brothers whose friends have also been to this High Shaela funerals, and they want to be part of that, and they want to create that for their parent who's also going away, and he must go away in style. So therefore they want this deep desire for people to fit in. And I think that is absolutely not acceptable for those who particularly cannot afford.
Yes.
Because some of the balance sheets and the budgets that I see, you find people almost paying 40% of their salaries towards insurance. It's not even life insurance, it is funeral insurances. The majority of that is funeral, and that's where you actually see how people are stressing, are under pressure to actually fit in. It is absolutely insane, and it is not necessary.
This is a period where you are adjusting. You're adjusting to life without this person.
Yes.
And it's sad that we're doing this adjustment by incurring and taking on more debt.
Yes, and the thing is, we need to understand a human being is 2/3 a spirit person. And only 1/3 of who we are is really flesh. What I see in you, what you see in me, is just dust. And that's the dust that's going under the ground, back to dust where it belongs. The 2/3 of a human being is the spirit world. And the spirit world is what we ignore the most. And we don't put value onto that, but we put value onto what you wear, what you drive, where you stay, and that is just pressure in society that is unfortunately sad. In my work, in my line of work, I see people, earning as 250,000 Rand and a month net salary, and somebody has the audacity to look at me straight in the eye and tell me, I'm not earning enough. What would you do with $250,000 every month?
You think you're not earning enough.
Yes, she says she's not earning enough.
Right, so is a savings option advisable then, so that we avoid getting ourselves into this debt trap at this very desperate time?
You know what? You can save up, but the best way, because again, life is unpredictable. A funeral insurance, they can be cheap these days. I mean, there's some other products that you can pay up to 50 Rand a month, others up to 100 Rand a month, and get a reasonable amount of money, probably 20 or even 30,000 Rand. And I honestly do recommend that people should not seek to go above what their insurance allocation. If it means taking a tomato box for a coffin, then do that and take the dust back to dust.
The plain pine box, not the casket, because your budget just doesn't allow.
The budget doesn't allow it. Why do you want to fit in with somebody else when you know you can't afford it?
But you've explained to us, we're looking at what our neighbors are doing, we want to do the same.
Why do I care? My goodness grief. Honestly, really? Why do you want to be? Okay, that's fine. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Follow the masses. Get into debt. Ruin your financial life. Remember, the dead are resting in peace. You are going to be hounded by debt collectors, by letters threatening you that they're going to sue you. You'll have a bad credit record. And mind you, you might decide to be indifferent and not pay. That bad record will stay in your name for the next 30 years. If you've got 30 years to wait, bring it on.
So in a nutshell, as we wrap up, a funeral happens in my life, a death happens in my life. I now have to contribute to a funeral. What should I do if I'm not adequately covered? There's no life cover, there's no funeral policy, there's no funeral insurance. What do I do to ensure that I avoid the debt trap, but I'm still able to continue financially?
Look, if you don't have insurance, if you have nothing else, you don't have a choice. You're going to have to go and get debt. Unfortunately, there's no way of burying your loved one via the process of osmosis. You just say, get buried, and then things happen. Unless you are unemployed and you have no money whatsoever, I am sure that every single government in the world have what they call a pauper's funeral. And that's where you can actually go. I'm not particularly sure on what the process is to be able to qualify for that, but it is there for the truly, those who are really just down and under and have absolutely nothing.
No other option. Right. So guard your financial
Guard your finances, yes.
Guard your finances.
Insurance is certainly better, and it's a way of speeding up your financial health, in a sense that you will not have to incur any debt after burying your loved one. It can become a blessing in that way, but do not be obsessed over it. There's a lot of people that I know who've taken insurances, funeral insurances, as a form of an investment on their older loved one.
Yes, and we cash it in, even though we don't end up contributing.
And they don't want to contribute. They contribute as little as possible so that they can take the other money and then maybe pay off debt. But because they haven't dealt with the habits, they go back straight into that debt again. Welcome to poverty.
That's just so heartless. That's very heartless to benefit from the death of a loved one and not even contribute towards their funeral. Thank you so much, Mamwini.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Well, those are the wise words of financial coach Winnie Kunene. After the break, he is the undisputed go-to person for memorial tombstones with that luxurious touch to it. We talk to Lebohang Kitsane after this. Over the past 14 years, Bataung Memorial Tombstones has built an expansive business network, both nationwide and as far-reaching as Lesotho, Botswana, Zambia, and Kenya. Their craftsmanship is building tombstones and memorial statues has seen them cater to a long list of high-profile South Africans, including musicians, TV stars, athletes, and politicians. Please join me in welcoming the founder of Bataung Memorial Tombstones, Lebohang Kitsane. Dumela.
Right.
It is a pleasure to have you here. Your work has become renowned, you know, making headlines. You must be proud. You've been in this business 14 years.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you end up in it?
I really don't know what happened. I started in printing, and then as a graphic designer, it led me to getting into tombstones. And I wanted to create personalized tombstones.
Yes.
From ordinary tombstones, even if you buy a 2,000 rand tombstone, we add that personal touch, because it's all about creating everlasting memories for your loved ones.
So it's not just about the luxurious, the ostentatious statues and tombstones, even the most basic, most affordable.
Basic ones, that's where we started, and we still focus on those. And then we also create the bigger ones that people come in, they give us a character of a person. We characterize the tombstone based on that person's
So what's the most
lifestyle and all of
elaborate?
that.
The most elaborate that you've done?
Like the one for Joe Mafela, because he was the kind of man that we always used to sit in our lounges, enjoy watching him on TV, and that's what we designed.
Yes.
And also he used to, every time whenever he gets home, he would sit on his couch, watch TV. Hence we have a couch and we have a TV and a lounge set up for his grave.
And how much does something like that cost?
We don't really talk
don't
about
disclose.
prices, because we sign a non-disclosure with families, because each and every stone is done for a specific person.
So what's the most expensive you've made, though?
It can go up to 500, 600.
1,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Finish it off. I'm thinking 500 rand.
No,
500 to 600,000
Yeah, but you must
rand.
understand, you add things like your bronze statues, life size, and it's a lot of work that it takes months to create certain things, and hence the price.
That's astonishing. That's astonishing. Why do you think people place such value on tombstones? Of course, there are different elements to a funeral, to a burial, that we want specific attention to, that we place emotional symbolism to. And tombstones are one of those. Why do you think this is so important?
It's important because it's not for us, it's for the generations to come. For you to see that your great-grandfather has done 1, 2, 3, 4, and he was this kind of a person. Hence, we personalize the stones. Even if you go to Europe, you go to France, the famous cemetery there, you find huge stones that are 100, 200 years old. You go to Rome, you find gravestones and tombstones that are 300 years old, and they still explain to you that this person is this kind of a person. And I think it's very important to honor your loved ones with an everlasting memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hence we say our slogan is a legacy cast in stone. We cast your legacy in stone.
So when you're sitting with the client in a consultation, they've come to you for your services, what are some of the things that you observe that you need to ascertain about what they're after?
I ask them about how. The first question is, who's this person? How did he make you feel? And what is it that he loved so much? And then we look at the character of that person, and then we look at the lifestyle, and then we create something that will talk
So you take complete creative, you take over creatively?
Of course.
Wow. So what kind of manpower and craftsmanship do you have within your team to be able to pull this off?
I've got good stone masons that work with me. I've got artists that work with me. Most of them, we've trained them to make them understand the kind of quality, the kind of craftsmanship we want. Yes.
To withstand, as you say, for generations. But there are also people who benefit, who steal from graveyards to go and on-sell these beautiful stones that have been erected. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, there are those companies that steal gravestones because they're smaller companies. And hence, we always try to tell our clients that if we do a stone, we need to put certain things on the stone, like inscribe certain words deeper and all of that. And we are still, right now, we are working on a tracking device that we want to install in tombstones. We're still in the research and development stages of that because we want to curb this tombstone theft.
Wow, so that's in development.
Yes.
So have you ever had to say to a client, no, this is beyond your budget, this is not something that you should be considering? Or do you always try to make their wishes come true, regardless of circumstances?
People come in, they give you a budget, and then sometimes the stone that they really want is too expensive. But what we always do is we accommodate them and give them cheaper ways and cheaper options of doing it. Let's say instead of getting it in a color called Zimbabwe black, we say rather buy it in Rustenburg, rather do this. And then some, let's say in certain graveyards, they want a stone that has glasses and all of that. And based on the experience, we know that this symmetry, that will get vandalized. You advise them that don't buy glasses because you're going to be wasting your money, or buy certain things that can be stolen from the stone.
Yes.
Rather go this route for that symmetry. For that other symmetry, you can go that other route.
So is there a trend that is emerging about what your clientele is loving, different stones that seem to be more popular?
Clients right now, they love this personal touch of having a unique tombstone that is designed for my father or for my sister or for my daughter. They want that, which, I mean, instead of just buying a square tombstone, buy something that symbolizes the one you love. Like now, there's a lady, her son loved computers. We created a stone, a laptop tombstone that has his photo with a 3D photo on it. And that woman, after she saw that thing, it gave her closure. It's not all about the money, it's about creating memories and getting closure. And that's what we do. We try to give people closure.
So what do you think has motivated this shift to this kind of trend of the work that you do? Because it hasn't always been there. They haven't always been this elaborate.
It's the passion I have. The passion I have, and I educate my clients about different things. And I travel the world. I go see what the world is offering, and I come back home, and then I change it. I do it my way. The Batawung way.
So it's not that maybe people have more disposable income or that they do have more funds to be able to go this elaborate?
Tombstones, it's not something that you can do overnight. People plan it. Some, they plan it for 10 years. They put away money. And you must understand, we as Africans, we are a family of 10. We want to do something for our grandfather. We talk that let's put away money for the next 5 years and then go look for a tombstone that will be good enough for our grandfather. Because our grandfather, he sacrificed a lot for our parents. He sacrificed for us. Now let us give him the dignity he deserves. And people spend time.
So from the point of burial, you take your time, you plan out this tombstone and how you want it to
there are other people that would come in 20 years ago, the guy has passed on, but they buy a tombstone now.
Yes, yes. Oh, Lebohang, thank you so much.
No, thank
and
you.
All the best with your business.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of my guests for providing some insights today. Here's to hoping that you've taken some mental notes and are now better informed to start making the necessary financial decisions that will help soften the blow of the anguish that comes with paying for funerals. We're back again tomorrow. From me and the team, it's good night.
Real Talk is proudly sponsored by Y-Way P20 Pro and MTN.
Everywhere you go, MTN.